Hello, everyone. That was a nice piece of music. I actually liked it, and I'm surprised. So, and we actually have some viewers, which is a good thing. My name is Pasha. As you can guess from this title on me, I work at a Bellsoft as a developer advocate, and today I host the seventh edition of our JRush show. This is a small conference which you can watch from your couches, from your sofas, from your TV. But the most important thing, you can ask questions, and please ask them. We'll have three talks today, one from Muhammad Al Arabi, second from Anthony Delan, and third from Catherine Edelweiss, who is accidentally my colleague, which is again amazing. If you don't have questions, I will have to ask questions, and none of us want to do this. But let me introduce Mohammed here. Hi, Mohammed.
Hello, hello. How's it
How is
going?
it going?
It's great.
So you already shared that you are on the south of Germany, and it's very hot at your place, at least. By my book, it's 37 degrees. Folks, if it is also hot, you can share in chat just so I know that our chat works correctly. But Mohammed, do you want to say a couple of words about yourself?
Sure. I'm a software engineer at JRush. If you're in Germany, so it's only if you're in Germany you know them. I'm a Docker captain also, and yeah, I like to write. So
Who is the Docker captain? What
sorry.
is what is Docker captain?
Docker captain means that we are ambassadors for Docker, basically. So we get to meet them on regular basis, and then we could we talk about the good things that they do.
Look, it's only 3 minutes in the show, and we are already learning new things. With this, I'm going to leave stage to you. You can share your screen. Have a good one. See you.
Thank you. Good, good. So let's begin. So the talk is called Black Forest Commandos, or how do we secure our pipeline? So uh, the story goes that Asgard is assaulted by monsters called CVEs, and Thor goes to Odin and says, "What do we do? I can't fight these monsters because but my axe does my hammer doesn't work against them." And Odin says, "Let's summon the commandos," and they come in to save the day. So this is what the talk is about. We summon the commandos, and then one by one we learn how to fight the CVs together. That is me, Muhammad Ali Arabi, as you have already heard from Pasha, and I'm a Docker captain, and those are my handles in case you want to find me online. And those are the two books that I have written so far. So yeah, check them out. So what is a CVE? A CVE is basically a record in a database of a vulnerability in a package. So you have installed a package in your uh, software because now packages are very useful. And then turns out that there was a vulnerability in that package, either intentional vulnerability or the maintainer that left the hole in the package. And then someone realizes it and then creates a database record somewhere that says this package has this vulnerability in it. So if you have it, maybe you want to update it. And if you are a Java engineer, you probably have heard about Log4Shell that happened in 2021. So that was maybe a waking call for supply chain security, and uh, that was what shaped the industry in the coming years. Uh, if you're a front-end engineer, maybe you have heard of React to Show that happened a few months ago. That was a similar issue. So in case of React to Shell, uh, if you had the vulnerable version of React on your machine, basically everyone on the internet could run scripts on your servers where the React was hosted. So these are things that we want to avoid. Log4Shell was a wake-up call in 2022, and then after that, shortly after, everyone was talking about S-bombs. So who knows about S-bombs? So you can write in the chat. Uh, One more point. So I'm going to talk about 10 different commands that we can use to secure our pipeline. And I will try to take 2 minutes per command so that roughly we will finish in 20 minutes. And everything that I'm going to talk about is also available in this blog post that I have written. Let's click on it and see what happens. And if you go down to the setup part, there is a button here that says you can run this as a Docker lab space. So the talk that I'm going to do, you can run as a do-it-yourself lab inside a Docker lab space, and then you can use the command. So if you have Docker desktop and you click on this button, then you will go to the lab space tab, and then you can launch the lab and then run it in your browser so that you can try the commands. Let's go back. So Docker init. The place that we want to start from is to have a baseline security. So basically, the commandos have arrived in Asgard, then they want to set up a base and then get things from there. Docker init is a command that if you have a project and you want to Dockerize it, you can use this command and it will create for you the Docker file based on your language, Docker compose file, Docker ignore, and a readme file so that you know how to deal with this. The command is deterministic, so that this command was added to Docker when there was no LLM around. So that's a good thing, because then everything that you see in the Docker file is written by some real people. So it's not like random. So the random is getting better and better, but so at least if you get a Docker file using this command, then you know it's all best practices. If you want to do it for Java 26, you can read this article that is shown here down in this slide. And if you go through it, so it basically is about so the Docker file that is created with this is multi-stage, and then you can at least look into the Docker file that is created. You can from the scratch create a Docker file, and then this is educational at least, so that you can learn what are the best things to do. So that was Docker init. Docker SBOM. So what was the issue SBOM was solving? The commandos have arrived in Asgard, and they want to know which people are in the castle, and they want to check them one by one. So they want to know they want to have a visibility in the attack, and they want to check people. So this is the issue SBOM is solving. It's a list of everyone in the castle, so that you can go to them one by one and check them. SBOM is a software bill of material, if you don't know it. And when Log4Shell happened in 2021, the issue was that people didn't know if they had the vulnerable version of Log4j. So I assume CTOs were running in the corridor asking engineers if they had the vulnerable version or not. And SBOM is solving that. So you have a list of all the packages that are in your software, and if you don't have them, then you have to get them somehow. Uh, yeah, the hype was high in 2022. This is me into meetups talking about SBOMs, and Docker then added a command to create SBOM out of your image. So if you have an image, you can use this command docker scout SBOM to generate SBOM out of your image. This is the complete command down here. If you want to create the SBOM with a specific format, SPTX is the best format if you don't know which one to get. And it's also useful because if you have a Docker image, getting an SBOM out of the Docker image is then language independent. It works for everything. It works for Java, it works for your front end, uh, containers, works for Go, so independent of which technology you use. And it is also necessary uh, because there is this thing called EU Cyber Resilience Act coming to Europe that says if you have any product that has software in it, then you have to generate an SBOM for it so that people don't have this log4shell issue that they don't know uh, what's there. Uh, and the uh, Resilience Act basically says that the SBOM format should be machine readable, so SPTX is a good candidate there. So now we have a list of all the packages we have in our software. What do we do with it? Uh, there is this thing called Docker Scout. Uh, basically, the commandos are scouting for threats in the Asgard. You have your image and you want to see if your image and the packages inside it have vulnerabilities. This is the command that you can use. It checks for the packages inside your image and then cross-references the list of packages with the list of CVEs in the database that we mentioned earlier. It says, okay, your Docker image has this amount of vulnerabilities with these severities, like, for example, 10 CVEs of a high severity. So you want to fix them. And it uses SBOM attestations if available. So what is an SBOM attestation? If you hand over a Docker image to a command like docker scout, then the software has to go through the Docker image and checks what are there, what's installed there. This might not be enough. If we will get to that later. SBOM attestation is basically when you build your image, you create SBOM and then attach it to your image. Example is that there are checkpoints and then they are checking your ID card. So the ID card is basically the SBOM attestation. Verifies what's inside. So as you saw earlier, a compiled language like Java has multiple stages. And if you check the image later, then the scanner can only check the packages that are in the runtime environment in the image. If you have used some vulnerable packages in your earlier stages, in your build stages, then the scanner of your image cannot find those packages. This is why it's beneficial to generate SBOM when you're building your image, so that you can include all the stages of your Docker build. So when you're building your image, this is how you create SBOM attestation for it. It's just a flag there. You just pass SBOM equals true, and that will include this SBOM attestation. By default, it won't include the earlier stages. So if you have a multi-stage app like this, then you have to add this argument line here to include the SBOM from that stage into the SBOM attestation that build kit is creating. So this is an interesting example because so it's a C++ example, and the code is built here, and then only the binary is copied to the last stage of the Docker file. If some scanner like Docker Scout or Trivi looks into the Docker file and looks into the Docker image, they won't find anything because it's just one binary and no information about what was used to build this binary. So this is the only way to check CVEs in this scenario. You have to include the earlier stages in SBOM attestations, and if the SBOM attestation is there, then Docker Scout will pick it up and then use it in checking the CVs. So these are some Norse rules in case you want to read the slides later, the things that are written on the sides. So hardened images. One point about CVE is that most of the maybe many of the CVEs at least come from your base image. When you want to create a Java application or Python or Node.js, so you use this standard base image for Node or Java, and they by default have CVEs in them because the vendors of these images are so reducing number of CVEs is a hard thing to do, and the vendors of these images want to create Java or Node images. They don't want to additionally also reduce the number of CVEs in those. So someone else, some other party has to come over and reduce the CVEs. It's basically a hardened district, so very hardened warriors are there, no CVEs, they're going there. Also a note to a movie, and so Docker created a series of base images called Docker hardened images. They are open source. They are open sourced last December, and they have near zero CVEs in them. So as much as they could, they reduce the CVEs. Sometimes there is a package that has a CVE in it, and there is no fix for it. So there is no way around it. But this is how it looks like. So if you have a node image and your base image is node 24 as an example, you have two different sort of Docker hardened image for it. So if you want to use for build stages, you want to use the hardened image, you want to use the dev variant because it has shell, package manager, and root access. And for the last stage, you want to use the production image because then it doesn't have shell, doesn't have package manager, and doesn't have root access. So in case something like React to show happened, then the attacker cannot do much with your image because they would run bash scripts and there is no bash to begin with. And in terms of CVE differences, last time I checked, Node 24 had almost 200 CVEs in them, and the hardened version had only 8 low CVEs. So a lot less CVEs and then with lower the severity. Good, and then there's a blog post if you want to learn more about Docker hardened images. So one extra thing about CVEs is that many of them are noise. You want to exclude them from your reports. So basically the monster is harmless and doesn't want to harm anyone, and you don't want to hunt them down to spare your resources on not harmful CVEs. And the technology to do that is called Fix. You can look it up, and if you are interested, you can follow the instruction on the lab, and you can create records called Fix attestations. And basically, these would say, okay, I know this CVE exists in my Docker image, but it's not exploitable. So that's more in the level that you want to manage your organization, and many of these tools that are there does it in the background. So you give this CVE basically an exemption card. So and so another thing is that with Docker builds also we have now seen a lot of Docker build commands with a lot of flags in them, and then you want to have a versioning on the flags that you pass to Docker build command. So Docker has created something called Docker Bake. This is basically like Docker Compose, but Docker Compose is for running multiple things, and Docker Bake is for building. Uh, so baking a cake. Uh, this is the command Docker Bake, easy, and it will read instructions from dockerbake.htl. This is how it looks like. You would say, this is my Docker file, this is my context, this is the tags that I want to use. I want to have SBOM attestation in it and provenance. So that's another thing to bear in mind. And I want to build it for different platforms like ARM and AMD. Then you can commit it to Git, and then you can then review it or have versioning on it. And the last point is that you want to you want to sign your images and their attestations. Because then if you sign your images and attestations, then you can have a chain of trust so that you know this SBOM attestation that I have created here is not meddled with. So, and the last point is, as we mentioned, many of these packages that we install, when we install them, it's not known that they have issues, like in the case of like for shell or React to shell. What can we do about them? Basically, one of the commandos was working with the CVEs, and then that was one of the vulnerabilities itself. So we didn't know about it. We can do so. Mainly, we can. The best thing we can do is to have a grace period when you want to install a new package. You can wait for 5 days and then install it. So enforcing it might be a bit harder in depending on your solution, but usually in the first 5 days after a package is released, it's then known if it has a vulnerability issue in it or not. So this was the case for the npm packages that were basically toxicated last September. It was the case with all the forums that are now being published recently in the npm ecosystem, and then a few of them were spreaded to Maven. And this is a nice defense mechanism, because you wait a bit until you're sure that this new package doesn't have anything wrong with it. And the other part is using a hardened image, because then it will reduce the blast radius. And if you have a running container, you want to drop the Linux capabilities that you don't want. So these are three things. Outro, this is my LinkedIn profile in case you want to talk further about this stuff. And again, this is the blog post. If you want to see all the commands, it was not enough time to go through all of the commands very deep. And yeah, so the commandos saved Asgard. And if you want to if you want to follow the commandos further, there are some other things. There is the book Black Forest Shadow that you can learn security, supply chain security mostly. The one in the middle is my book Docker and Kubernetes Security, which is for supply chain security and runtime security, and there is another comic book coming. So that's it. If you have any questions, so I see a few questions in the. Pasha, you want to add something?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was surprised by Docker Bake. Have never heard about it. I mean, looks like an amazing tool. I mean, I probably should just rewrite all my Docker files today. Well, not rewrite, augment all my Docker files with HCL files, which will say, hey, please also build this and this for me. It looks very, very interesting.
Thank
By
you.
the way, speaking of hardened images, I should mention that not only Docker has the hardened images. For example, Bellsoft also creates hardened images with the Linux and with Java and with other languages too. And as well as Docker, they're all is available at Docker Hub, so you can just go and download them. Just shop around. I mean, see what is there. I already see a first question now in our chat. Why is SBOM useless if an attacker gains control over your build server?
Yes. So SBOM is there to prevent attacker getting control over your server. If it's already there, then yeah. So basically, SBOM is there to tell you, okay, this package that you are using in your production environment has the security vulnerability that the attacker can use to gain control over your server if the attacker is already there. Yeah, so this is more to the left. So you have to also harden your runtime environment, but now there is an increased number of attacks on the supply chain, basically.
So what you're saying, we have to have many layers of defenses. SBOM is only one of them, but everything should be zero trust. Everything should be protected, and like you shouldn't give people access to random stuff in your company and hope that maybe it will be fine. You, by the way, you mentioned React Router, right? And that it was infected with something malicious through actually CI pipeline, right?
Yeah, React to show, you mean? Yes.
Oh, we have more questions. Nice. The next one. What are the biggest operational pitfalls when introducing cosine and recur into an existing CI/CD pipeline?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I'm not very big on operations, but if you have any points to add to that, maybe you can do it. But one extra thing is that your CI/CD pipeline should also be safe. Otherwise, if that's compromised, then also that won't help you. So if you want to add anything.
I also guess you already kind of gave answer to this question, but I will read it anyways. What is the absolute easiest way a developer can add artifact signing to a pipeline without making their team want to quit?
Yeah, so okay. The easiest way would be you okay, this is not maybe too. So if you have an SBOM attestation, you want to sign it with cosign and then attach it to your Docker image. If you have the build kit SBOM attestations, the SBOM is inside the Docker image. So if you sign the image, the SBOM is included in it already. This is maybe not very futuristic, but the OCI referrals are not yet super there, so it's a bit harder to get there. But yeah, so build your Docker images with SBOM attestation, provenances, and then sign it with cosign. And hopefully your team won't want to quit.
Should we mention Salsa?
Yes.
So there are 3 levels. Or how many levels of Salsa attestation are there?
So there are 3 levels, and apparently recently the new worm that came around made the last level of salsa insufficient. So we have some other issues coming. 4 levels now. Okay, maybe they introduce another level.
Anthony, our next speaker, says that there is 4 levels of self-attestation, and it means we know who is the next person we are asking this question. I have one more question. What I don't understand about hardened images is how to customize them and debug.
Yeah, so hardened images, I mean, okay. So you mean if we don't have a shell and root and everything, how do we?
Probably, yeah. Like it is the idea, your surface of software right there inside your image is very, very narrow. You don't have debuggers, you probably don't have even basic tools like shell or curl. Hopefully you don't have them, by the way.
Yeah, so if it's on Kubernetes, we have something like Kubernetes debugger that there is a parked container that basically parks against your image, and then you can look into it. Docker has something also called Docker debug, which is a paid product. So if you're using it on your local machine, then you can look into your images, into your containers with that without having anything shell or anything.
Thank you so much. It
Thank you.
seems to be temporary out of questions. If you want, you can stick with us. But meanwhile, I'm switching to our next speaker. Thank you so much, Mohammed. It was
Thank you.
so nice to host you.
Thank you. See you around.
And here we go, Anthony, the person who asks question who answers questions for another speaker. So thank you so much for help. I really don't remember how many levels of attestations are there. Do you want me to introduce you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
No, that's fine. I'm going to introduce myself during the presentation, so don't worry about it, Pasha. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, then thank you so much. You probably want to share your screen, but meanwhile, the stage is all yours.
Excellent. Thank you, Pasha.
Oh,
whoops.
Wrong person.
And thank you, Mohammed, for your great presentation about all the Docker possibilities. The thing is that I am going to actually give another point of view on how you can create Docker images rather than using Docker files. So that's going to be interesting. Let me share my screen. Hop. All right, and let's get started. I guess you can all see my screen. This is the name of the presentation, Paketo Build Packs, the Spring Boot way to build images and more. Here, you can scan this little QR code if you want to have access to the presentation content and references. Who am I? So, yeah, I told you, Pasha, that I would introduce myself. I am Anthony Dan. I am mainly a Java developer by heart, and I recently joined a company named Hero Devs. And at Hero Devs, I am part of the Java team, and I am responsible with my colleagues to actually patch libraries, open source libraries that are no longer maintained by their original maintainers. Maybe because they switched to the latest and greatest version and they stop maintaining the older versions. So we actually are here at Hero Devs to actually help out people who are not migrating yet to the latest versions. Also, I have been a Paketo build pack maintainer, mostly for the Java build packs for more than 2 or 3 years now, I think. And when I have also some more available time, I am also co-leading the Montreal Java user groups, Montreal Java user group, as well as the DevOps for Kids Quebec chapter, where we organize workshop for children every quarter. Okay, let's go into the agenda. So I'm going to talk about build packs, and then I'm going to compare them with Docker files, actually, that were introduced by Mohammed just before. Then I'm going to talk about Spring Boot optimizations, because the Spring Boot build pack is the one I spent most time with recently. And then I will tell you about where you can actually see the build pack being used and how you actually can leverage some existing platforms that already are compatible with build packs. All right. So what are build packs? Let's start with like the higher level view of what a build pack is supposed to do. They detect and build. So for example, if you have a source code in your directory with a pom.xml and then an RCRC folder, then the idea is that the Java build pack should actually detect that and then should generate an entry point, so basically a runnable process, but won't be able to execute your code. So here, for example, you can see in the detecting phase that when I'm saying Java build pack, actually Java build pack is a set of different sub-component build packs. And here in this example, you will notice that there is, for example, the Maven build pack, and the Maven build pack obviously will see the pom.xml and is going to say, hey, I know what to do with it. I know that I need to do Maven package on it, for example. Same thing with the Spring Boot build pack. If inside your pom.xml you have some Spring configuration, it will also detect it and will also be able to contribute something during build. What is build? Well, build is where things happen. This is where each sub build pack is going to act. For example, since it's a Java project, you will need a JVM. By default, we use the Bersoft Liberica JVM. So the Paketo build pack for Bersoft Liberica will detect and will say, hey, you need a JVM. I'm going to provide you with the one from Bersoft for your given architecture. So if you're on ARM64 or x86, for example. And also if you're building native, it will provide you with the native image kit. Same thing, of course, with Maven. It's going to give you Maven package. And for Spring Boot, it could actually do many things that I'm going to talk about later. So the concept of build pack basically, I think, became popular at least in 2011 when Heroku coined the term. With Heroku at that time, you could do git push to Heroku, and then they would receive your source code, and then they would actually act upon it, deploying your application and probably domain name with your application. Later came along Pivotal, and Pivotal Foundry decided that it was a good idea, and then they reused this concept of build pack, saying that, okay, this is cool what Heroku did, but we can do it on your premises using Cloud Foundry and Cloud Foundry build packs. But they were like, it became being like a competitive format. I mean, two different formats. So the good news is that in 2018, everybody came together with coining the cloud native build packs, and those build packs are actually producing Docker images, OCI images. Before I move on to the next part, I just also wanted to precise that there are other kind of build packs that exist outside of this picture. For example, the Nix project, they also created a concept of build pack. Same thing, they detect and build. And also, maybe in your own organization, some people, some architects have already created a bunch of shell scripts that are being triggered during CI and that actually detect your code and build images or run something for you. That's also very highly possible. The cool thing with build packs though is that it's an open specification and also an open source implementation. So the specification lives under buildpacks.io, that is under the CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation. What does it consist of? 3 components. The pack CLI, this is basically a tool to actually act upon build packs. The spec, obviously, and the lifecycle. The lifecycle is basically the binary that will decide what to do and that will orchestrate the detection as well as building. All those projects, though, they do not understand your source code yet. They are just tools to interact with build packs, but they are not implementing any specific languages. So this is why you have several choices, you have several implementations, and the one that I'm going to focus on is Paketo. Paketo is an open source implementation of the build packs. It's also under the Linux Foundation via the Cloud Foundry Foundation. And the Paketo build packs, we support a wide range of languages. And I'm not gonna lie, Java is definitely the most popular. I can't remember the numbers, but this is like where most our users are. Now, the next question is, why would you need to learn about build packs when you're already familiar with the Dockerfile that has been around for more than 10 years now? Well, if you write a Dockerfile, well, you need to actually create it yourself. Even if I know Mohammed just before said that there was this new tool that is named Docker Init, I think, that can generate it for you. But usually, you still need to write your own Dockerfile with a from statement, and then you put your jar inside of it, you create an entry point, you expose a port, and then you're good to go. So usually when you have such a Dockerfile, you expect when you run your Docker image that has been produced from it to basically run java-jar your app. Okay, makes sense. Now, how would you do that using the build packs, and in particular the Paketo build packs? It would be kind of the same thing. I mean, not the same thing, because you don't need to actually create a Docker file. But the result is going to be even better than what you would have done with a Docker file. What do I mean by that? Is that not only when you're going to build your Docker image using pack, it will actually create java-jar, but probably that some build packs in the detection will actually contribute more to it. What is more? More is, for example, some tooling to actually detect the memory dynamically and then set some JVM arguments at runtime. Yes, we do this. And also we can detect if you have your own custom certificates, we're going to be able to attach them as well in the JVM. Something that if you were doing Docker files, you would need to write it all yourself. Let me give you another example. Actually, since I was already talking about custom CS certificate, with a Docker file, you would need to do something like this. Run keytool import cert custom CRT if you want to accept, if you want to trust the certificates coming from your own certificate authority. With build packs, what would you do? You would just actually mount a volume with your certs, and there is a build pack that is going to detect those certs and going to run keytool for you. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. The cool thing is that if in your enterprise, if in your company, you're not only using Java, but some other languages, well, guess what? This is always the same pack command that you will need to run. Why? Because the build pack, some component build pack can be reused across different languages, and they understand for each language what to do, for example, to insert the CS certificate. So you don't need to have a sprawling set of Docker files across your company, which each team is going to maintain. No. It's baked in inside inside the build packs themselves. What else? Mohammed also you talked about SBOM generation. That's also something that the pack CLI can do for you as well. Why? Because during build, there is a Sift build pack that is going to actually generate an SBOM for each different layer. And then you can gather them all together and then have a proper SBOM. Another advantage of the pack of pack and build packs over the Dockerfile is, for example, third-party agents integrations, what we call sometimes APM. Let's take the example of Datadog, for example. If you want to attach the Datadog agent inside your Docker image, well, what you can do with the build packs is that you just enable an environment variable, bp Datadog enable equals true, and then the build pack at build time is going to fetch the latest Datadog agent, and then at runtime you'll be able to configure it. So that's also pretty cool because once again, you don't have to really do a lot of things. It's already covered. Now, let's be even more specific about Java build packs. Of course, the first question that you may ask is, can I choose my version? Yes, by default, the Java build pack is smart enough to detect what is the version that you want, but you can force to the latest and greatest. Right now, the default is Java 21 because we have a policy in the build pack community to not switch to the latest and greatest. Java 25 was out last year. We're going to wait for a year. So normally in September, we'll switch to Java 25. And you notice that I'm just talking here about LTS. We will never, by default, choose a non-LTS version. But if you want to use Java 26, you can set it yourself with an environment variable. We also support SDKman RC as well. So what if you don't want to use Bellsoft? Well, I don't know why you wouldn't use Bellsoft because we are pretty. It's a pretty cool JVM, Bellsoft Liberica. But if you want to use another one, you can actually also do that configuring the build packs. There is something that I also quickly mentioned before, which is the memory calculator, and that allows you to customize the JVM arguments. It's going to detect the amount of memory available and going to change the JVM arguments. So now let's go deep into the Spring Boot optimizations. To do that in action, we'll use the very famous Spring Pet Clinic. All right, so let's go into demos. All right, let's start right here. So here I have the source code of the Pet Clinic, and it's the main branch actually. It's the latest and greatest. If I go to the top, you will see I'm using Spring Boot 4.1.0. Fantastic. Now, what did I change in this project? You will notice that I removed everything related to Gradle. Why? It's because the Pet Clinic supports both Maven and Gradle at the same time, which is fine because it's a simple application. The thing with Buildpack, though, is that what should they choose? So it's not exactly predictable what's going to happen. I think by default, it's going to choose Gradle over Maven. So since I wanted to, in my presentation, use Maven, which is still the most common build tool in the Java community, I had to remove all the Gradle files. That's the only thing I did, and also some modification to pom.xml, but they're commented out for now. Anyways, let's build this application, and to do that, let's use the pack CLI that we just seen before. So here, how do I invoke it? Pack build, the name of the image I want to produce, and then I can choose a builder. So now you may ask, how do you know about those builders? The cool thing with the pack CLI is that you can ask it to suggest to you. Oops, sorry. I don't think it's exactly the right command. Sorry, pack builder suggest. So you can actually ask the pack CLI what are the suggested builders, and you will see that since once again the pack CLI does not favor any build pack family. It will suggest you the one from Google, which is another implementation of build packs, which is not related to Paketo build packs. Heroku as well, they have their own builder. And of course, you will see different builders for Paketo build packs. When I'm saying this, actually, I know that our friends at Bellsoft, they also maintain their own builders. So, for example, if you go to where is it? Yeah, I know that Bellsoft, they have their own. Yeah, it was there actually. Oops. You can actually choose to use their own builder. The same thing is going to apply. You just need to specify another builder. So this is completely standard. And when you choose a builder, you basically opt in for all the build packs that are attached to this builder. Of course, since I am Paketo maintainer, I'm going to use one of the Paketo builders. They are all being referenced in the documentation. So let's get started. Oh, wait, before I go there, I just wanted to tell you that, well, not only they are documented, but since they're open source, you can actually look under the hood of each builder. So this is the build I'm going to use. And this builder, as you can see, reference a build pack that is named Java. And this one is a meta build pack that references other component build packs. So if I go to the definition of the Java build pack, you will see that there is a bunch of build packs that are going to be embedded and that are going to participate in the detection in the build, such as, for example, the Spring Boot build pack. Okay. Anyways, it's gonna be better with an example. So let's do right this. My image. All right, pack build my image, and then I chose this builder. Okay, fantastic. So that's in it's pulling it because before I already prepared everything for the demo, but I guess that the builder has been refreshed since I ran everything on my machine. No worries. We just saw a Maven build run. So this is the result of a Maven build. One thing that is interesting to see, sorry for your eyes, where is it? It's not here. It's right there. So here we can see that during detection, those are all the build packs that are bound to this builder that are going to participate. Okay, so Birds of Liberica, and I think by default, since I didn't provide the default, I'm pretty sure it's going to be 21. Yes, it should be 21. Yeah, JK 21. Okay, yeah, that's the default. I didn't say anything, so yeah, that's fine. How can I run the image then? Well, as usual, you can definitely you can just run your image, docker run-it, then you bind the port. Let's have a look at the application. Okay, started in 2.2 seconds. Pretty cool. Let's have a look at what this application looks like. Can I refresh it? Still works, okay. This is the Spring Pet Clinic, and since it's a Spring Boot application, normally there's the actuator. And since we were talking about SBOM earlier on, we can actually see that there's even an SBOM endpoint usable directly from your application, which is pretty cool. So you don't need to actually, this is another option rather than generating the SBOM using Docker or using PackCLI. You can directly have it exposed via an endpoint. So this is pretty cool. Also a nice feature from Spring Boot. And I think Quarkus also, they have something similar. Anyways, the application is running. We can also look at the memory usage, 376. Why am I looking at the startup time and the memory usage? You guessed it, probably. It's because I want to optimize it a little bit more. How can I optimize it? So before optimization, I want to tell you that the Pack CLI is not the only way to interact with build pack, because the Spring team and most notably the Spring Boot team, they have actually created an integration with all the build packs. So basically, they respect the specification and the lifecycle, and they allow you to directly from the Maven build system to actually create your own image. So how does that work? You just need to declare the plugin that you're going to use. So that's going to be the Maven Spring Boot Maven plugin. So here I'm starting without, so there was no configuration, but I want to actually configure it a little bit now. So let's do this right now. I'm not going to do everything immediately. Let's be progressive, okay? Let's start, for example, with bumping the JVM version. The builder is, by default, it's this builder. So I put this, so it was not necessary because that's already the default. How do I know, by the way, that it's the default? Well, you guessed it, since it's an open source project, you can go to the Spring project, Spring Boot source code, and you can see on GitHub that by default they have directly hard-coded in the code the Paketo build pack. So this is, of course, this is definitely a testimony of the trust that the Spring and Spring Boot team have towards the Paketo build packs. And of course, this is driving a lot of users to the Paketo build packs, because when you build a Spring Boot image by default, using the Gradle or Maven plugin is going to use the Paketo build packs. Okay, cool. Enough talking, let's actually put that in usage. I'm calling Maven Spring Boot build image. As I told you, this is basically me invoking this plugin. I don't need yet I don't need to specify anything else because everything is inside the pom.xml configuration, right? Okay, let's do that. Let's skip test to go a little bit faster. So now I'm expecting to have the same result as before, except that this time I should have Java 25 baked in. So let's see, what is it? Spring Boot build pack that entered. And I'm looking for the version of my JVM, and I missed it. Yeah, it was right there. It's going to be 25. That's perfect. That's exactly what I expected to have. And then the image is prepared. That's fantastic. Probably the performance should be more or less the same. Well, except that I'm using a later JVM, so it should be slightly better, I guess. Talking once again about this performance, I created an article on the Paketo blog recently, where I basically talk in length about all the different performance approach that you can apply using the Spring Boot build pack. For time constraints, I won't go through everything in this article. I would just like to start with something that is pretty easy to do, is that at runtime you can already apply few options with recent JVMs, such as Liberica 25. So you can use compact object headers, for example, to save a little bit, as well as you can enable virtual threads as well. I think I put that somewhere right there. Okay, so those are pretty easy enhancements to apply because I don't even need to rebuild my image. So how can I do that? I can do docker run, and then I can provide Java tools options. I got compact object headers and virtual threads enabled. Let's go and see if I have a difference. Okay, not that much. It doesn't really show. Probably that my example, I mean, it's not a proper benchmark that I'm running, but maybe if you have a lot of connections to your database, maybe that makes sense, definitely, to enable the virtual threads in that context. Okay, but this is, those are nice to know performance hints, but there is much better than this. The one that I prefer is the AOT caching. So basically, the AOT caching is going to explode your jar in a what we call a flat layout, and that's already going to make your application faster to start. And after that is going to, what is the next step is to apply Spring AOT instrumentation as well as AOT caching. Okay, so I'm going to do it all right now. I'm going to so that is not necessary. So here I'm going to enable Spring AOT. This is AOT instrumentation and this is AOT caching. So this is going to introduce the training run, but it's going to generate a caching file. I can reuse those options about virtual threads and compact object headers. And yeah, that's pretty cool already, what I have. What do I have? I just need to rerun my build. And this is where things are going to get interesting with the training run. If you're not familiar with it, it's basically at build time, after the application is compiled, is created, we're going to run it just a little while to actually create what we call a caching file. So here, so you can see here the plugin. So sorry, there's a lot of logs. I know it hurts. You can see here that the application was started very quickly. So here you can see the Spring banner, and you can see here that the training run has been leveraging our options as well. So this training run is very quick. It's just to load all the beans, and then it's going to dump a huge caching file. So here at the end, we'll see it. It should be there somewhere. Reading AOT configuration. AOT creation is complete. So I said it's a huge one because it's like 123 megabytes. And the cool thing with this caching file is that next time you run, the first time you're going to run the image, we're going to load this file. And guess what? The performance are much better because the JVM is already caching many classes for you. All right. Before we do this, we can actually investigate with Dive. Dive is a tool that allows you to look at all the different layers to what was produced in your image. And if I go to the end, almost, is it there? Yeah. If we look at what was produced by this build, you can see here the application.aot file that is baked inside your image, with also the layout, the exploded layout, where we have a lib folder with all the different libraries, so third party as well as Spring, and also the runner jar, which is, as the name implies, is going to load up all the libraries. And this is kind of the optimized way to package your Spring application. All right, so let's run it. And let's hope that it's going to be slightly faster. So Pet Clinic, it's not native yet. It's just Pet Clinic latest. Okay. This is what we just produced. And as you can see, boom, the startup time is divided by 3 or 4 almost. Normally, also, the memory usage, as you can see, has significantly dropped as well. Okay. There is another optimization that can be done with the Spring Boot build pack that is named the GraalVM native optimization. This one takes longer to actually produce, and it's going to rely on GraalVM and the native image kit. I already built it for you because it's pretty long to build. And if I go native, you will see that it's even faster and memory is even lower, much lower this time. But there is a big but. It's more complicated. There are definitely trade-offs. There is more configuration and many Java libraries are not really compatible with it. Also, if you want, it's usually said in the Java industry that if you have a long-running JVM, you prefer to stick to the JVM inside. And if you really want to have a very quick startup and you're not going to run the application for a long time, for example, in a Lambda context, then native would be the right choice. But if you're not in a Lambda context, usually you would prefer to stick to the JVM and all the goodness from the JVM. Okay, so that's it for the demo. Okay. How do you use those build packs, right? So you can use the Spring Boot Maven plugin, the Gradle plugin as well. But not only, your favorite CI will help you out creating your images using build packs. So in GitHub Actions, there is an action for that. GitLab CI/CD, Jenkins, of course. There are many also platform as a service, such as Heroku, obviously, Fly.io, Porter, that already leverage the build packs for you. And even some cloud providers, such as GCP and Azure Container Apps, they also know how to deal with build packs. Obviously, GCP, by default, they will use the Google build packs. But if you want to use the Paketo, it's open. You can use whatever you want. In the case of Azure, last time I checked, they are using Paketo build packs for most of their build packs, but I think they also have their own build packs into the mix. What's in for the future? So if you came here and you already know about build packs and you're wondering, hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do? Actually, there was a survey recently that was run by Daniel Mikusa, another maintainer of the Java build packs. And the results are in. People, what do they want? The community, they want distroless builders. Distroless builders, I think, Mohammed, you also mentioned that in your presentation before. They are basically very lightweight base images with close to nothing. By default, right now, Paketo is only relying on Ubuntu or UBI. So we definitely welcome other base images, such as Bearsoft Alpaquita, Docker hardened images, like Mohammed, you mentioned. Also, what about the SBOM that are generated? Right now, they're generated in node format, so we want to support Cyclone DX. That's definitely the most popular format for SBOM right now. Also, there was a build pack that was introduced that is named the APT build pack for images based on Debian, such as Ubuntu, to install more packages. We know that people are relying on other base images. They would also like to have their own package manager into the mix. So that's also something that we're thinking about adding. Okay, thank you very much for watching. You can once again take a picture of this QR code to have all the links. Over to you, Pasha.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Before we have any questions from the chat, I have a question of my own. Would you say that enabling Spring AOT is the reasonable default?
Sorry.
Should you always enable Spring AOT independently on anything?
Right. So there are two. So there are two types of AOT. So I know this is kind of confusing. There is like AOT compilation, which basically is going to instrument your classes in a way that in a way that they are fixed in time and there is no more dynamicity at runtime. So this AOT instrumentation or compilation is what I would say a good first step when you are aiming at native. So that's going to be useful because a native build will need to do the AOT instrumentation anyways. So if you want to go into native, yes, start with enabling AOT. That's definitely a good idea. Then the other AOT, which used to be named CDS, class data sharing, but is now renamed as AOT caching. So AOT caching is what is expressing in the form of a training run. So this is the thing that is going to run your application for a short time to load everything and then dumping the caching file. This one also is a very nice performance optimization, but as always with performance, in some cases it can go not that well. So to answer your question, Pasha, try it out. You know, there are just knobs to turn on. Do that directly in your PubNotiXML build.gradle or command line. Just try around the different options with your application. If you're lucky, maybe that your application is like using libraries that are very well used and well supported by all those environments and is going to work out of the box. I have heard some people complaining that in some cases with some third-party libraries, it doesn't work that well. So try it out. This is what I mean for always performance, because yes, just turning some knobs, you can gain tremendous performance divided by 3, the startup time. So it's pretty cool, but sometimes there is more effort. So yeah, just try it out and see.
I actually tried to hide the statement inside the question because, like, in my small benchmarks, just enabling Spring AOT without enabling AOT caching, without building native image, without using AppCDS, just enabling Spring AOT, a little bit improved startup time, and the cost was nothing. I mean, I didn't have to increase the size of my jar or my Docker file or my Docker image. I didn't have to write any code like I would have to with Crack, for example. I didn't have to hack around as I would have to with native image. I just got this improvement for free. So probably, folks, you want to try it. And by the way, we have several questions in our chat.
Super.
So, what is the biggest mistake people make when they try to handcraft a Docker file for a Spring Boot app?
Okay, yeah, that's a good one, definitely. Biggest mistake is that they write their from statement, the first line from their base image, and they don't put a tag. So I know Mohammed just previously said that you should actually pin to a base image that you trust and that you really know about. Why? It's because there are several things that happen, right? When you do from, I don't know, I think it still exists, from OpenJDK, for example. Well, you need to be sure that who is producing OpenJDK, are they going to update it oftentimes? Is it still in action? And also, the tag can move. Maybe they used to be maybe the latest used to be Java 21, but maybe one day they will switch to Java 25. So it's completely unpredictable when you use a from and you don't properly pin the version of the base image. So I would say, to me, that's the first idea that I have in mind. Yeah, that's definitely to me the worst thing you could do with a Docker file. And once again, the build packs, and in particular the Java build packs, they just basically do everything for you, and they do everything the best way possible, so you don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Speaking of pinning, do you recommend pin a Java version or a hash sum?
So the security people will always tell you to use a shasm, that's for sure. Shasm is super predictable because unfortunately in the Docker world, the tags can be updated. So if there is a malicious actor that gains control of the Docker repository, we could very well update the tag that you're using. I don't know, if you're using tag 25, we could actually update it with something else that is malicious. So shasm is definitely the best for security.
But still should probably opt into using build packs, which use shasams under the hood.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly, Pasha.
The next question, I actually love it. Is an amazing question. How to handle AOT cache with Java agents enabled in build packs?
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good one. So right now, what I would suggest you do is using the OpenTelemetry agent. So the OpenTelemetry agent is a Java library, and you just embed it, and then you just configure it to actually send your traces and everything to a connector. So I would say that, and also OpenTelemetry is the specification. So all the APM, they kind of have an integration with OpenTelemetry. So I would say OpenTelemetry. And I think this question was asked because there was a time, not that long ago, but when you were attaching, when you were JVM attaching agent to the JVM, then for example, if you were doing a native build, for example, I'm not even talking about AOT cache, I'm talking about worse, like a native build with GraalVM, then it wasn't compatible at all. You could not actually JVM attach to a native build. So it was completely impossible for a long time. But now with OpenTelemetry, you definitely have options. And yes, it's supported. So use
OpenTelemetry. Aren't build packs a little bit rigid? Is there a way to say, hey, I want to add this, and these Java agents to my application with build packs?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Now, the thing is that we support, in the Pacero build packs community, we support 5 or 6 APM agents. I don't remember how all of them work, but some of them, they still do a JVM attach. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be issues with native build packs, or even maybe during training run. So please switch to OpenTelemetry. To me, I mean, this is my personal take on it, but that's the spec, and this spec supports. I mean, all the APM they also support the spec, or they at least should support the spec.
Nice, thank you so much. And the next question in, are build packs just a black box that hides configuration from developers, or do they actually give you more control?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everything is open. So if your developers are curious, they can definitely look at how the build packs were being implemented, right? Sure, they're written in Go, so maybe your developers they don't want to go through the hassle of reading Go code, but at least we log everything that we do. So this is for transparency, and also you can very well use Dive like I did. So with the Dive tool, you can actually have a look at what is the end result of all your layers, so you can inspect. I will be honest with you. The first time I think that I used the Spring Boot build pack, I was kind of shocked because there is this Spring Cloud binding jar that is being added to your class path. And I was like, what? What are they doing? They are basically adding stuff to my own class path. Of course, it's something you can disable. But this shows kind of the mentality of a build pack. It's not a mentality of black box. It's a mentality of doing the best things for you by default. We try to guess what is the best thing to apply to your build, to all the best options to apply at runtime. So that's definitely the mentality of the build packs. Of course, you can disable everything that you don't like, but yeah, we try to do good things for you. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And I guess the last question we have here, what is the best way to use build packs in an enterprise environment in which access to the internet is restricted to download additional resources as the JRE?
Excellent. Yes, you can do that. There are several ways of doing it. Okay, I'm going to start with the one option I'm sure of but it's a bit more complicated. Is that, for example, if you want to embed the Bellsoft JRE, for example, as you could see during the demo, we download the JRE of the JDK during build. What you can do though is you could update yourself the Bellsoft build pack JRE, the Bellsoft build pack. You could fork it basically, and instead of putting the coordinates on github.com/Bellsoft, you could give directly a URL for your own Nexus or Artifactory in your company. So you could do that. Then, of course, you could complain that you have to maintain another build pack. I mean, yeah, you have to maintain something, so you're kind of losing the beautifulness of the build packs. I think, and I'm sorry, I just have a doubt. There's also well, that's also. I think there's a way to mount a volume with your JVM, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't actually exactly remember. Anyways, first answer that I know for sure, you can fork. Another way also that could be interesting is that instead of forking the build pack, you can fork the base image and provide the base image with your own JVM. I know that you folks at Bellsoft, you do something like this, so that could be also an option. You use a base image directly with the JVM. That's also something you could do as well.
But what I would dream about is having BP JVM URL environment variable in which I could put whatever URL I want for my own JVM.
Yeah, that's pretty nice, but that wouldn't be enough, Pasha, because you would need, like you said before, you would need also to provide the SHA-SUM if you want to be secure, because how can you know that it's not going to be tampered with, you know?
Well, BP JVM URL and BP JVM SHA-SUM, I don't know.
Something like that. Yes, that's right. But yeah, those are definitely good points. I'm definitely taking that feedback in.
It is a beautiful question. I think this is actually very interesting, and I can imagine how this particular problem can prevent people from leveraging build packs in their corporate environment. They just don't want to be a more maintenance burden. They have their main products. They probably have their platform, and like, why would they take on one more thing?
Sure, exactly. So yeah, this is definitely good feedback. I'm listening. I mean, I'm hearing
Thank
it,
you so much. Thank you,
and
Michael.
yeah, we could definitely do something in the beer pack community. And by the way, Michael, if you want to create an issue for that, you're very welcome to.
Michael, you know where to go. You should just create an issue, and Anthony will probably look into it. Anthony, thank you so much. It was very interesting and insightful. Thank you for hosting us and hosting us. Sorry, talking at our space. And thank you so much for you being so kind that you mentioned Bellsoft so many times. I am beyond grateful. This was amazing.
No
Amazing.
worries.
Thank you so much. If you want, you can stick with us for some time. Who knows? Maybe we'll have more questions, or maybe in the end, I will ask you more about Southside Station. And meanwhile, I am saying temporary bye to you and inviting my colleague Kate onto the stage.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hi. Hi,
How is
Pash.
it going?
Oh, awesome. I mean, it couldn't be better. I've been listening to two amazing talks here, and oh my God, this JRush is just excellent. Love it.
Is it worth it to speak at JRush and not host JRush?
Well, there has
I
to
mean,
be.
you can only do one thing, right? Either you host or you speak.
Yeah, that's why we switch roles. That's
What do you like more?
Well, I think I like talking more than hosting because I'm not very good at small talk, and yeah, I kind of get lost.
Neither of us. Come on, it's a cultural thing. That's fine. I mean, we don't need to be, we are technical people. We don't need to be good in small talk.
Yeah.
We need to know our tech, I believe. So, with this, thank you very much. Do you want me to introduce you or do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I think I will introduce myself, right?
Then amazing. You can share your screen and I will remove myself from the stage. See
Oh,
you after the talk.
all right. Right, just a sec. Um, view. Okay. Yeah. Okay, nice. Right. So, hello everyone. Thank you for joining JRush. My name is Catherine Edelweiss. I'm a developer advocate at Bellsoft. Just that's a coincidence, right? That I'm here. Very lucky coincidence. But anyway, I am currently focused on researching the ways to maintain and build more secure container images. And this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. So we are going beyond the scan, right? And we are going to look at what we can do with the sheer amount of vulnerabilities that we sometimes face as a team. And maybe this is because I have the past in literature, or maybe just because I like stories, but I usually present my talks as a story. And today, I want to tell you a story of a regular police officer who is just by chance disguised as a Java developer. Right, and this is how the story rolls. So the shift has started, business as usual. The container image is being built. Here's the Docker file that is used at this particular company. We have a very popular open source base image with Eclipse, Xamarin, and Ubuntu as a builder. We build our application and simply say Java minus jar in the entry point. So the shift has started, everything is looking fine, everything is looking great. Well, the final image takes almost 1.5 gigabytes, but oh well, that's how the story rolls, right? That's not that much, right? Almost 2 gigabytes for a container image. Well, anyway, so the shift has started, and then suddenly our poor police officer is flooded because the dispatch line is burst with hundreds of calls, asking him for his urgent help, right? Because the application, the container image that was sent down the pipeline turned out to have 115 known vulnerabilities. 5 of them critical, 28 of high severity. Well, and that is not even the worst case scenario, because, for example, if you build the container image with OpenJDK base image, right, which is deprecated on Docker Hub but nevertheless used by many teams, this is going to contain several hundreds vulnerabilities. All right. So our police officer receives 115 calls. Now, what does they do? Well, in the normal life, there is no chance or no time for the police officer to actually stop, take a deep breath, and analyze the situation, right? They have to react quickly, because the goal is 0 CVs. We have 100 CVs or more, and well, you don't actually have time to think. You need to think about patching. You need to think about where to get the patch, or whether you need to write the patch yourself or create an exception. And oh my God, what do you do? But today, during JRush, we have a little bit of time, about half an hour now, or maybe 25 minutes, and we can actually stop, right? And we can take this deep breath and pause and analyze, right? And look into what we actually have to solve, and what is our responsibility, and what we should pay the closest attention to in the first place, right? So this police officer becomes the data detective for a time being, right? So what do we start with? Let's start with analyzing these CVs. Scanners usually give more information than just the pure CV count, right? And for example, here I'm using OSV scanner, and it gives a very beautiful HTML output with the classified vulnerabilities by the layer. And here we can see that most vulnerabilities are contained in the base image, right? So the Ubuntu layer contains 74 vulnerabilities out of 115, right? Eclipse Tamarind contains 23 vulnerabilities, right? And there are 18 vulnerabilities in the application dependencies. So even here, even at this point, we can understand that actually what we can do is in the realm of the application dependencies. And the base image contains most CVs, ironically, right? Okay, so we have seen, right, that there are some things that maybe we shouldn't be dealing with, maybe. But let's dig further. And it will turn out at some point that some criminals do not even belong to your district or even to your city. But there's a call, there's an emergency, and somehow you have to react, right? Because you're on duty. But what do I mean by that? The typical container image, especially with the Java application, contains, if that is the container image built with all the default settings and without actually choosing the base image carefully, it contains a lot of tools, packages, libraries that do not even belong in the production. Right, so for example, we were building the image with Eclipse Tamarind JDK and Ubuntu, and JDK is not for running the application. JDK is the full Java development kit for building and compiling it, right? And it contains all the tools for developing and compiling the Java application. But you don't need that in production. The application is already compiled. What you need is a JRE. That's a subset of JDK with the tools just for running the application, right? And simply by dividing that, you already reduce the number of packages that get into your final image. Docker multi-stage builds will help us with that. So there are 2 ways, right? So as we can use the Docker file and build the image ourselves, or you can use build packs. And when you use build packs, by default, they use JRE for the production image, which is great, just great. But if you still use Docker files, then Docker multi-stage builds come to your rescue, where you can use JRE at the final stage. Then another point is to choose the base Linux carefully, right? The first move is to grab a popular lightweight distribution, such as, for example, Alpine Linux, and it is great. It is minimalistic. It is clean. Open source, right? You can use free production. That's a good first step in cleaning out the mess from your container image. But a little bit of a spoiler alert: not all base Linux distros are created equal, and we're going to look into that a little bit later today. So let's see what we can do. We can use, again, multi-stage builds. And at the first stage, we use Tamarin JDK with Alpine, right, as a builder. We package the application. And then at the second stage, we use Eclipse Tamarin JRE with Alpine, and we transfer our jar file and run it. And already that reduces the size of the final container image 10 times, right? So the final image takes 300 megabytes, or almost 300 megabytes. That is 10 times less packages, libraries, dependencies in your final image, right? And well, logically, if we look at the scanner, and we'll do that in the next slide, we can suppose, right, that there are going to be less CVEs because we have cleaned out all the irrelevant stuff, right? And yes, exactly that. The scanner finds 17 known vulnerabilities. That's 85% less than with the first image. And that's already a great result, right? So instead of dealing with more than 100 vulnerabilities, you now have 17. That is something, well, at least bearable, right? Okay, so we have cleaned out the stuff. We have decided which crimes actually happen in our district, right? That's good. So now what we do? Here again, we can see that the most vulnerabilities are contained in the Linux layer. Really much fewer than with Ubuntu, right? So instead of 74, we have 15 in Alpine, but still there is room for improvement. Okay, and there's already one vulnerability in Eclipse Tamarin instead of 24, as far as I remember. It was in the first image, right? Okay, so we have a list of crimes that we have to react on duty during our shift. What do we do? Of course, again, not all crimes also not created equal, right? And if there is the armed, inadequately behaving person somewhere in the midst of the crowd, maybe this person demands more urgent attention than a graffiti left on the wall by some teenager, right? So what do we do? The CVSS priority code is going to help us. This is going to be our first stage of classification. So CVSS is short for Common Vulnerability Scoring System. Basically, that's the estimate of how bad the consequences of a potential attack could be, right? That's a purely theoretical estimate, but it can already give us some grounds for thought. And there are four levels of severity with CVSS. So there's the critical level. Usually these vulnerabilities demand that you patch them as soon as possible. The high level, again, you can patch it now or with the next update. The medium, you can leave that for the next update. And then the low, you can create an exception and put it in the backlog to deal with later. Because they don't demand that much of an attention. That's the starting point. And then you can escalate or de-escalate based on your situation, right? So if the component is internet facing, if it's reachable, and if it has a big blast radius, then you escalate. And what was high by CVSS becomes critical in your situation. And on the contrary, if the component is not reachable, or if it's not used, or you have controls in place, then you can de-escalate that. And what was high, for example, becomes medium or even low, right? So that everything depends on your specific scenario, on your situation. And of course, when we create the exceptions, they must have the expiry date, because we don't throw them somewhere in the in the hope that somewhere somebody will deal with that later. No, the exceptions have the expiry date, and then at some point we must review them and see whether maybe there was a patch introduced and it's easier to patch the service, or well, maybe you have to escalate that vulnerability, right? Okay, so we have like the rough estimate, and now we need to assess the actual scene, right? So what is this vulnerability in your specific scenario, right? Or in other words, is this suspect in your district? Is he or she armed in a crowded place? Are they reachable? Right. So all these questions that we have to answer to actually understand what demands our attention right here and right now. And this table here, this form, can help you with that. So we classify the CVEs by the affected components. So where exactly is this CVE? Is it in the base image, in the base layer, or is it in the application dependency? Is it exploitable, right? So is it reachable? Is it on the runtime path? What are the preconditions for the attack to happen? Is there a patch? Yes or no? Simply as that. Is this service externally exposed, right? So is it internet facing, or is it the internal service? What is the blast radius? Is the single service affected with this vulnerability, or several services on the shared platform? Is the lateral movement possible? Lateral movement is the technique when the attacker can get further into your network, right? A CVSS score, right? We still account for that. And then the triage, right? So what do we propose we do with this CVE based on our findings? Do we patch it now? Do we patch it with the next update? Or do we create an exception? And based on that, you will have a very clear specific risk tier that you can act on quickly, right? Because you can see immediately which CVEs demand your attention now, right? And which can wait for later. So what can we do actually, right? We have classified our CVEs, right? We have classified our crimes, and where do we go? What do we do with them, right? So usually the CVEs that are exposed have a big blast radius demand that they are patched now, and especially if there is a patch available, right, somewhere in the upstream. So you update the dependency, or you update the base image, you retest the application for stability, for performance regression, and then you redeploy it, right? Often, but not always, these vulnerabilities also have the high CVSS score. Now, if the vulnerability is associated with lower exposure, right, if it has lower exploit potential, then you can patch it with the next update. Again, the availability of patch is important, right, because you can leave the patching for later, right, because you cannot well, you can, of course, but introducing all the patches all at once requires that you retest your application, well, many times, right, as depending on how many patches there are, and that would be a great burden for the infrastructure. So if there is availability to delay the patching, if everything is under control, then you do that. And then the time-bound exception. It does not have to be the time-bound exception for a year or 2 years, right? It can be 2 weeks, for example, right? Or a month or a week, right? And this exception is created when the vulnerability is not exploitable, but you still monitor that, right? For saying's sake, there's no patch, right? Because if you have the critical vulnerability, but there's no patch, it doesn't mean that the application goes down, the services stop, and then that's it, nothing works. No, that does not function in real life and should not be so. So if there's no patch, then you place some controls in place, right? So you somehow try to mitigate the risk of attack until the patch is ready, until you write the patch or you ask for a patch from the maintainer of this library, right? And then, if you remember, on the previous slide, we have decided that there is a very major distinction between applications CVEs and base image CVs. What do I mean by that? So again, a regular police officer is not a Superman or a superhero, although maybe they are theoretically, but not quite, right? And it means that not all crimes are in your jurisdiction, actually. And so what happens in the application, that is your responsibility. The dependencies of the application are your responsibility. The code of the application is your responsibility. However, the base image CVs are completely different jurisdictions, and you should not become the amateur Linux or JDK maintainer, and you should not, well, in a good world, you should not write a patch for the code that you didn't write and that does not belong to you. So this should be the maintainer's responsibility. But then you will ask me for sure, but Catherine, we are using the open source base images. We're using the open source libraries. Maintainers do introduce patches, of course, but you cannot demand a patch right here and right now from the open source maintainer. And that is so. Yes, exactly. So Alpine is a great project, but this is a community project, right? You can file the request for a patch, but nobody gives the SLA for that, right? It can arrive in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, in 2 months, right? Depending on whether the team has time and capabilities to introduce this patch. But on the other hand, in the enterprise situation, you cannot wait for a patch indefinitely, right? You need to have strict SLAs in place, and that is what open source project does not do. In our case, this is the volunteer squad, right, that does their best helping you to patrol the city, but maybe for the enterprise application, for the enterprise system, you might want to call the feds, right? And these are the hardened images. Mohammed has already mentioned hardened images in his talk, so I will be laconic about that. So hardened images are minimal base images with an immutable component set that do not have the production hardened images for production, right? They do not have the shell, they do not have the package manager. Sometimes they are distroless, but that depends, right? So there's a variety of them. But there are three key components, right? It's minimal, right? So it has only the essential components your application needs to run, right? It has low to zero CVEs by design, right? So the maintainer is committed to constantly patching the base images. Whenever there is a patch ready, appears upstream, the maintainer updates the base image. So the base images always stay clean of CVEs, right? They always have low to zero CVEs. And there are, of course, SLAs for patches, right? So there are open source hardened images that you can use, or you can request the commercial support from the maintainer, and then you will have the SLA for patches like 24 hours or 48 hours, well, depending, of course, on the contract, right? But then it means that you're always backed, right? So low to zero CVEs, and it stays that way, right? Then the image comes with the SBOM, with the software bill of material and the provenance data. So it is transparent. You always know what is in this image, right? It is not a black box. And it also comes with a digital signature. So you can prove it, right? So you can check the signature and you can verify that this image comes from the maintainer that you voted for, and that you know who built this image, you know that this is the image that you have chosen, right? And the maintainer is accountable for this image. So clean, transparent, right, and verifiable. That these are the core concepts of hardened images. And basically using them is not that difficult. Of course, there are nuances, right? Because there's no shell, there's no package manager, you cannot install additional packages. But in the simplest case, you simply need to change the from line in your Docker file. So here I'm using as an example Bellsoft hardened images. They are open source, free to use in production. You can check them out on Docker Hub right here and right now, or hopefully after the my talk. Yeah, so you can take them and you can use them already. And there are SLAs available if you need them for your enterprise. And what is more, we have in-house capabilities of introducing the patch ourselves. So we have the Linux experts, we have JDK experts who can actually write the patch for the JDK or for our Linux. So we don't have to wait for the patch to appear upstream, right? So the proactive patching might be interesting to you in this case. So I'm using hardened Liberica runtime container JDK for building the image, and then JRE non-root for running the jar file at the final stage. The non-root tag is also a useful thing because running containers as root is not recommended, because provided there are specific kernel vulnerabilities, attacker can get root on the host if there's a rooting container. So, and usually you have to do that manually, right? So you have to specify the user, but in this case, you get the non-root container image automatically. And so when we build the image, we see that it is 219 megabytes, even a little bit smaller than the previous one, right? So even less packages. But what is the most important thing is that if we set the scanner loose on this image, we can see that there are no issues found. So there are 0 CVEs at the moment of creating this talk, which is already beautiful, right? So we had 17 vulnerabilities, and now you have like maybe a couple of them left in the application dependencies, right? So you don't even have to deal with that. You didn't even have to classify the risks. You don't have to dig into that because there's just nothing to dig in, right? The image is clean, which is just beautiful. But of course, if we are using this, strength, if you're using this special force, right, you need to set up some guardrails in your infrastructure, right? So, for example, there's the person comes and says, "Okay, I'm Special Agent Smith." All right, okay, maybe, right? But you do not believe the person that they are a special agent not because they say so, right? They have to prove that, and you have to verify that. So one of the good starting points is to pin the base image by digest. So say that we have the agent Smith, but maybe there is another agent Smith somewhere in the unit, right? But we need the first one, the particular agent who works on our case. In this case, the name or the tag in the world of containers is not enough, right? But the digest is something like the ID card. So it always identifies the image, the exact image that you have chosen, right? Because text can drift, but digest does not, right? So this is the first step that we do, we pin by the digest. And then, of course, you check the credentials, right? We do not believe by word. We need to check that this person really is the federal agent. In our case, we verified the digital signature that comes with the base image, right? You can use the open source tool for that called cosign verify, and then use the key provided by the maintainer, and then you verify that this is exactly the image that you have chosen. Why do we do that? Well, because we want to avoid having moles somewhere in our infrastructure, right? Because if the foundation is fake, everything built on that is compromised, right? So we have chosen a very good, a reliable base image, but we need to prove that this is exactly the image that we have chosen. So the shift has come to an end. Our police officer is very tired, but very pleased because they have found a solution to this vicious circle of calls, right? And this is not doing more with less. No, in the case of container image security, I think the better phrase is to do less with less, right? We have less work to do, actually. We have fewer packages, we have smaller images, we have clear responsibilities, who is responsible for what, right? And we have very clear risk prioritization. And as a result, we get fewer calls at 3 a.m., which is a win-win, right? So I guess that's it from me. You can join our briefing room in LinkedIn if you have any additional questions to me or to Bellsoft, or you can also subscribe to our CyberJar channel, where we post the videos on the latest and greatest in the world of Java, and have live streams with the Java experts. So you get the freshest news from the Java world and fresh best practices for you to integrate. yeah, I guess that's it from me. If you have any questions now, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. There are actually several questions already. So let's start from this one. For a team that notices Java-based image needs hardening but cannot tackle everything at once, what would you tell them to fix first?
Yeah, so of course you cannot, I understand you cannot build the complex vulnerability management system from scratch in just one day, right? Yes, I get that. So I think the first very good choice would be, well, first step zero is to generate an SBOM, at least see what's going on in your container image, right? The second one is to choose the hardened base image, right? And to create at least the proof of concept and to see how better it makes your deployments, right? How fewer CVEs there are, and well, at least plan the migration to a hardened base image. I think that is the step number one, because then you have fewer vulnerabilities and at least you have fewer problems to deal with, right? And you can build on that. You can introduce digital signature verification. You can sign your own images, right, at the end of the deployment and verify them at the final stage, right? And you can go from here, right? But the first step is to actually clean out the mess, I would say.
Thank you. The next question is, can hardened images be used in build packs? And Anthony actually already answered it. I would probably add him to the stream, but his camera seems to be disconnected. So, are you agree with his answer? Of course, change the base image or builder, and here is the example. Or you would say something else.
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, build packs already give you hardening, right? Because they do not contain the shell. The component set is immutable, so you do not introduce any additional packages, and they come with the SBOM. So there is already the hardening. There is also the possibility of the hardened build packs, but that is well, a little bit of a spoiler alert. I cannot say more. My lips are sealed. Pasha, and yours should be too. So yeah, we can take that a step further with the build
I
packs.
mean, didn't you just say everything?
No, I did not. No, and wait
Okay.
for for the news.
I mean,
to
you didn't say when, but other than that. Okay. We have more questions. Who should engineering teams, how should engineering teams balance image update cadence against regression risk and delivery speed?
Oh yeah, that is a great question. So yes, I have, as I have mentioned in my talk, bulk update is not always optimal, right? Because you have to test and retest your application for regressions and for stability. So that is where risk classification comes into play, right? So you see which vulnerabilities demand your attention now and which patches should be introduced urgently, right? So you introduce the patches that are needed here and now, and then you retest the application, and then you can go further, right, with the ones that require less of your attention here and now, right? And then you can introduce the patches in a very predictable way, right, and roll out the updates in a more predictable way.
Okay, cool. Thank you. The next one is, why are so many teams still shipping containers that run as root, and what breaks the moment they try to switch to a non-root user? It was partially covered in your talk. I mean, the problem was covered, but not the sources of the problem.
Yeah, so by default, most container images actually come as a root, and maybe teams don't even know that they need to do that manually, that they need to specify the user manually to take away the root rights from the container, right? So that's just the default settings, and the containers are built with the default settings, and there, here we are with the container running as root. But in most cases, you don't need the container running as root. There are some specific cases that might need a root and container at the startup, right? So maybe you need to bind to some privileged ports, but then again, you can use the special Linux capability for that, like net bind service, as far as I remember, right? For that, you don't need root for that, for example. Or you can want to perform some system administration inside the container for some reason. But again, that is a very, very, very rare case of that. So basically, in most cases, like maybe 95% of cases, you don't need root in a container. But if you do, right, and if you use the non-root container, then you have to assess your use case and see what you can do for that. So maybe in most cases, using the special Linux capabilities for the things that you want to grant your container will help you solve your problem with the root.
And at the same time, Muhammad just says that root is cool. I mean, I totally agree. Running as a root gives you all the possible privileges. Why think when you can not think? Okay, we have one more. If you could do only one thing to increase supply chain security, what would it be?
Migrate to the hardened base image. I mean, that is the first and foremost thing. I mean, there are several vendors of base images, right? It's not like I am advertising Basalt here in some point, yes, but anyway, there are Docker hardened images, there are ChainGuard hardened images, there are Basalt hardened images. Choose the supplier that fits your requirements, right? But do that. Migrate to the hardened base image, and you will thank yourself for that later. I assure you, 100%.
Thank you so much. We don't have any more questions, so I'm adding Muhammad here. And luckily, he was out for some time, and he's back. Thank you so much for getting back. Sadly, Anthony is not here, so I can't ask my question about salsa attestation levels and what is the level for and how are they different and so on. But maybe Catherine knows something about it.
Well, actually, I knew that I thought that there are three levels of salsa, and this, the latest I checked was the third level, right? So the fourth one is something that I should dig into as well, right?
I looked it up actually when I was off, and maybe he was referring to level 0, which means you don't have anything. So in total, you have 4.
Oh, yes. We are programmers. We should have gotten that.
Wait. It is actually very interesting. So
Yeah.
it depends on where you read, but I'm right now on the Salsa website here. And there are actually 5 levels. 0 is no guarantees. 1 is the build process must be fully scripted, automated, and generate provenance. 2, it requires using version control and hosted build service that generates authenticated provenance. 3 is the source and build platforms meet specific standards to guarantee the auditability of the source and integrity of the provenance respectively. And 4, it requires 2-person review of all changes and a hermetic reproducible build.
Is
So-
it for which version of Salsa is it?
This is level 4, if I read it correctly. So you can open, I can
Maybe
probably
you can
also,
share your...
let me post it into our private chat, by the way. From there, you would be able to open
it's
it.
the version 0.1. Okay, I think
Is
this
it
an old-
a wrong salsa? Oh, it is
I think
wrong salsa.
Yeah, I think that the oldest one is now 1.2, so this is kind of old.
Do you see levels here?
Yes, so in 1.2, I think there are only up to level 3.
Okay, so apparently they changed it. Okay. It is actually very interesting that Google gives you a link to an older version of specification. So folks, you probably should look at the later version. Let me post the link right here. Oh, it is actually, we actually have a new question. Can you explain what EU companies need to do to comply to the EU CRA, essentially?
Okay. Let's start
Does
with
any one of you know?
I would say. Yeah, so I don't know the whole thing by heart, but I think in terms of supply chain security, you have to create an SBOM if your product has software in it. Like if your toaster talks to Alexa, then you have to generate SBOM for your software in your toaster bit.
As far as I understand, essentially since say 11th of September of 2026, you're obligated to provide SBOMs to anyone who requests them, which means you should have them, which is very simple for Spring application. You can just generate it and might be significantly harder for something else. And if, I don't know, for example, Alpine doesn't generate SBOM for you, then you will need to come up with a way to have SBOM, to provide SBOM to your customers, clients, users, and so on for Alpine. Or you could use Alpaquita, which also, I mean, for now, as of now, not all the distributions of Alpaquita actually provide you with SBOMs, which is something we intend to fix. Okay, I guess Anthony is still not here. We could tell him that, Anthony, sorry, there is no level 4 in the newer version of specification. Folks, thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for speaking. It was exciting. I mean, I loved it, genuinely. Thank you for your time. It was the amazing first time with you, Mohammed. I hope that it's not last. And I hope to see you both here many, many times in the future. Thank you for your time. And to our audience, please follow JRush and connect when it's up. The next one is set up to be in September, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. The next one should be in September. We hope to make it live. Thank you so much, folks. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you.